Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Pit Against, a live Flesh and Blood call-in show. I'm joined by my constant co-host, Kevin Smurf Murphy. Kevin, what's up?
Oh God, was Hartford last weekend? No, it was the weekend before. Crap. Okay.
What did you do this past weekend? What was this past weekend?
I played a 1K.
Oh.
And then I went to my parents for Mardi Gras.
Is that the event you got finals in?
Yeah, I split the finals of that.
So how does split the finals work? Does that mean you won or you got second?
So I was technically given the win, but we both decided that we would like $300 each instead of $400 going to first and $200 going to second, and also spending an hour to play a game.
Oh, y'all didn't even play the game? No one deserves it. No one deserves it. Give all the money to the judge. This is the biggest sham I've ever heard in my entire life. What the?
We'd also played in Swiss, and I won that game.
Oh, so you did win. All right, that's pretty cool.
But yeah, we were like, it is 8 p.m. We'd like to split and go home. Cool.
Fair enough.
Good talk.
True. All right. The spiel of the show is Pit Against is a live call-in show. If you would like to be live on air talking to us about your Flesh and Blood take, join the Pit Against Discord by clicking the link that's in the description or that Kevin is now putting in Twitch chat. Please click that link. Talk to us right now. Oh my gosh, he did it. Thank you. Then join the waiting room. Put your hot take in the topics text channel, and if we like your take, we'll pull you on for a mic check and then put you on air. Do you want to go over one of these topics now, or do you want to pull? You want to pull call?
Let's do one you've got first.
Okay. Which one? Or do you want me to just pick one?
Just pick one.
Okay.
I don't remember which ones we have.
Okay, so a simple one, an easy one that I was going to bring up. This might be a short one too. Is Fi best deck right now?
Fi?
Yeah.
Draconic Ninja.
Yeah.
No.
What's he lose to? He won. Okay, I'll give the premise for this take, right? So my take is Fi is the best hero in the format, and to elaborate on that,
he won an armory.
He won Worlds, which that's like a big armory. He won Worlds, and he beat the second place person who's playing a currently LL'd hero. Two. He's the most aggro deck in the format. Oh, I guess I'm talking about this from the perspective of like RTNs, because it's Road to National season coming up.
Yeah, starting this weekend.
He is the aggro deck right now, right? Is there anything more aggressive than... Is KO more aggressive than Fi?
KO can be more aggressive than Fi. If they're on the yellow wild rides and yellow pulpings, yes.
Which one's more
aggressive than Fi?
Which one's more consistent? Consistently aggressive, I guess. Like if it's those two decks against each other.
I guess Fi is going to be more consistently aggressive. Okay,
so Fi being the consistent aggro deck in the format.
That's not
per your words.
You just used, but okay.
Since that, he is asking the question. No. RTNs are traditionally a lower powered, or not lower powered, but like it's an easier event compared
standard,
to like,
the standard of play is lower.
It's a tier 2 event, right? You're going to get more people like me at the event, right?
You get more equity at these events taking comfort decks than you would at, say, a calling.
But also you get more equity in bringing decks that ask questions, right? Because you are going to be posing questions to people and they might not have the answer for it. Like if you say, I'm Fi, I'm killing you turn 3 unless you do something, then they have to do something. Or like traditionally a question would be like, I'm Oldhim, you have to kill me, right? It's different, but as the aggro deck, you're asking, whatever. It's also,
I make dragons.
There is a true. There is also a there's a term that, or there's a knowledge that aggro decks are just easier to play, which isn't always the case. they are a little more straightforward.
They're more linear. It's easier to get to that like 80% mark.
True.
Is what people usually term it as.
Yeah.
It is easier to get to a baseline proficiency with those decks than it is, say, Levia or
the game plans are easier to explain.
Yeah.
Your matchups are typically a little more black and white.
Hands are much more likely to play themselves or like follow the same heuristics every time.
Yeah. So that all coupled with what is Fi's matchup spread? Like, what of the other tier 1 decks does he struggle into?
Azalea, Bravo, Victor, Brutes can just outrace him and have a fridge now with Bonebreaker.
Can Brutes outrace him?
Yeah.
Can Levy outrace him?
Yeah.
You
want to watch Levia fill her graveyard really fast and then turn on the gas and kill you in 2 turns?
Oh, I guess that's... I don't play a lot of Levia. I don't know how Levia works nowadays. Now that she's... I thought I knew... Like, I was, like, starting to figure out how Levia works, and then they added one card that said, you don't know how this deck works anymore.
Oh, yeah, the Demi Hero?
Yeah, the Demi Hero. I'm just like, frick, there's so many more game plans. Game plans are different. So, Fi being the linear, consistent aggro deck that it is... It's definitely not like the deck to beat at RTNs. It's not like the deck to bring to RTNs.
No.
Okay.
If you want to bring a numbers deck, you bring KO.
Okay.
If you want to bring an aggro deck, you bring Azalea.
Azalea? I guess so.
Yes.
Tempo is a form of aggro.
Imagine if Fi had on hits.
Is she consistent?
She's consistent enough. But I don't know that I would put her in tier 1 right now. She has some rough matchups into Bravo, and the Brutes are not super favored. They're not bad, but Levia just has Husk.
Ooh, I bet No Fear.
No Fear's also pretty good against Azalea.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Especially if there's like... Yeah, that sounds pretty good. So I guess 5, maybe not the power horse. Yeah, not the workhorse I thought he was when it comes to RTNs.
5 was not the best deck at Worlds. Even though, yes, he won.
It won.
5 was not the best deck at Worlds.
True. What deck would you... Nope, LOL, thank you, the Armed Pit. What deck would you... Okay, so somebody has been playing Flesh and Blood for, like, 2 weeks. They're going to an RTN. They're like, okay, I want to try... I roughly know the basics. I don't want anything too complicated, but what's, like, an actual deck I could bring to an RTN? You would tell them to play...
Assuming they have access to any deck?
Yeah.
I give them KO.
You give them KO. You just give them KO?
Yeah.
Does his hands... Are his hands, like, play themselves?
Would you like to 2-card 9?
Like, do they just...
play 2-card 9s.
2-card 9s. That is always really good.
Play Blood Rush, play 2-card 9s. The getting to the floor with KO to that 80% mark is not super difficult. It is harder to get KO up to Yuki levels than it is to get Fi up to World levels.
I think only Yuki can get it to Yuki levels.
I mean, yeah, Yuki probably knows the deck better than anyone at the moment. That being said, I'm pretty sure she'd also say that there's a lot of work to be done.
That's so crazy.
In terms of learning the deck and matchups and refining the list.
So, what deck are you bringing to RTNs?
Dromai.
Fi. Oh, I thought I had it there. Dromai. The other Fi? The other Draconic?
Drophi, yeah.
Drophi.
The one with all the 0-for-4s?
Yeah. That's a pretty good deck. That's also... it's not linear like the way Fi is because there's a lot of different game plans you could go for. But, like, sometimes your hands are...
Rabble, Blaze, Snatch?
Yeah. And then you're like, okay, this hand just drops
I know what I'm doing with
16
this hand.
plus on the table.
Yeah. I know what I'm doing with this hand.
Well,
That's fine.
All right. There goes my chances at RTNs. Good thing I only have one in my area that's on a day I can't go to.
And it's draft.
Yeah, and it's draft. Yeah, it's not even a CC one. We get one of the like 6 draft RTNs, which is fine. I actually, if for a format outside of UPF, draft is probably my next best. But even still. Even still. Do you want to bring in our first caller to actually talk about a real topic, a real take?
Sure. Yeah, okay.
Okay. And I'm going to read this. Okay, so we have gotten one follower since our last stream, which is Sleep Strong. I think I know who it is, but thank you, Sleep Strong, for following us. You can follow us on twitch.tv/thetablepit. Same as the YouTube name. And you can go on our Discord, which will be in the description of this video. And it'll be in the description, like the about page for the Twitch channel. In order to go to the Discord and talk to us live on this channel. Just like the armed pit will, right? Because he's going to call in and I can give him a take if he doesn't have one. That would be super cool. Kevin's taking a minute with the Orc Knight to come back. So it's just me and you right now. Sitting here, talking about our feelings. I thought Fi would be pretty good, right? So, like, Dromai's a popular deck. Fi beats Dromai. That makes sense. Fi beats Dromai, right? I think that's a fair thing to say. And I feel like his plan of race everybody works pretty well into a lot of different decks. Like he just asks questions, especially also it plays well into newer players. Like if it's like a community of just a bunch of newer players, like 10 players who are just like, let's, we're just now getting into Flesh and Blood or whatever. You could easily get top 4. I don't remember how RTNs are set up. Actually, maybe that's what I'll look up. I'll look up how RTNs are set up right now while they're doing that. Do they go to top 8? What's the setup for it? Awarded to the top 4 players is a nationals qualification. Bum 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 bum. Is it just a Swiss? Da da da. Is it a Swiss? It's just a Swiss. Do they do a top 8? I don't remember how these work. Let me see if I can look it up on the organized play thing. Oh, not organized play. The Pathway to Greatness. We'll go down to, what is it going? Road to Nationals? That doesn't say it either. I think it's a Swiss, but is there a cut to top 8? I'll have to ask Kevin. Where is Kevin? What is he doing? What are those two kids? What are those two crazy kids up to? All right. Pretty excited about the rest of this. There's some spicy stuff on here for us to go over today that I'm excited about. RTNs are REL competitive? That's interesting. Rainbow foil hero cards to top 8. The winner gets a gold foil, common, rare, or majestic. And first and second get playmats, heavy hitter playmats. Oh, they get the playmat with all the heroes on them. What's up, Kevin? All right, so we have our first caller on the show for tonight. Caller, what's your take and what you want to talk about?
Hello, I'm Jesse. Find me at the Orgnite, also the Tal Sherlocksy guy. I wanted to talk about your Twitter take that Heavy Hitters is a one Guardian supported pod format.
Okay, here. One quick second. I have to send Kevin a message. All right. Did you get that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Caller, what's your name and where are you calling from?
Hi, my
William doesn't want to do it.
Hi, my name is William. I'm from Roanoke,
God,
Virginia, and my take is my local professional player, Tim Scroggs, said that in an 8-person pod, Tim, the Blade Gaming champion, store champion, and local professional player, said that there should only be one Guardian in an 8-person draft pod of heavy hitters, and I found that very enlightening. Thought I'd bring it up here. I can elaborate if you want me to.
Yeah, sure. Did they provide a reason for that? Like, was there any data to back that one up?
Yeah, to quote Tim, he said, Guardian cards are in the set are dog water. No, he didn't say that. I said that. But the point stands that he was like, on average, a lot of the Guardian cards actually are not like super on rate, right? Concuss costs 3 for 6. Like, it blocks 3, which is kind of cool, but Concuss being just a common Guardian card actually doesn't fit into the normal scheme of cards in Flesh and Blood. It's 3 for 6. 3 cost for 6, which kind of reminds me of which one's the Guardian card that gets like dominate if its power is greater? That's not Concuss.
Thump?
Yeah, Thump from Tales of Aria.
No, isn't there, or Overpower? There's a card that gets Overpower in the set.
Over the Top.
Over the Top. Yep. Reminds me of a classic. Yeah, that's a 3 for 6, and it reminds me of the classic Welcome to Wraith card with some of the best art on it in Flesh and Blood. It's a generic. You have to reveal a card. What's that card called again?
Demolition Crew?
Demolition Crew. It's a 2 for 6 that gets Dominate if you meet a condition. Is Demolition Crew just better than Over the Top?
Well, so
Guardian cards in this set are pretty weak.
I would say in general, yes, the Guardian cards do seem pretty weak on their face, right? Mm-hmm. But you also have to consider that if we look at when Welcome to Wraith was released, when we look at Tales of Aria was released, when we look at now, we've been through that depowering of the game. And the one thing that I've noticed is that Crush hasn't returned, really, right? Except for like Boulder Drop. So it seems like they're moving away from the Crush mechanic for now. And it also seems like they're moving away from the Dominate mechanic in general as well with Overpower. So who in this chat right now has been high rolled by a Bravo who just went, oh look, Dominate Crippling, Dominate Spinal, Dominate Crippling, get wrecked. Like, are we playing a real game here? Just like back to back turns.
I think I've been in a game like that, but I've never had it happen to me. Yeah,
but it does happen, right? It's like Bravo's one of those heroes that can just high roll anyone.
I'm implying that I've done it to people, and it's almost sad on the Bravo side of the table. It feels bad.
Yeah, it's just like, I guess we're just playing 5 turns and see what you
do. the 5 player on the other side of the table hasn't actually played a card out of their hand. They've only blocked with cards.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we look at the quality of Guardian cards, you say like, oh, this is a 3 cost 6, but functionally, did you spend more or less cards between that 3 cost 6 and a 2 cost 6, right? Like you pitch a blue and it's the same value in cards, right? Still a 2 card 6.
Could they have made it a 7 though? Is that card egregious at a 7?
I mean, this format has a lot of 2 card 7s, right? So it's just like now you're looking at a 2 card 7 with if this gets bigger and pushes that extra breakpoint, now you also have to discard a card.
Yeah, it's it's a conditional on hit effect like Crush.
Sort of.
What's the Welcome to Wraith cards that were like 3 for 7s?
Crush Confidence.
Yeah.
Like Crush Confidence is fine. but it just, this format is very much, there's way more 2 blocks, right?
True.
And if we look at the breakdown of like cards in a pack, like the first 5 are generally, you're going to be your like generic class cards, like your solo class cards. And then the next 3 are going to be your hybrid cards, and it's usually going to be a split amount. You'll have like 1 to 2 equipment, and then generics, and then 12 and 13 will be your rare slots, 14 will be your foil, and then you have your tokens and stuff. So just based on that and the fact that the Guardian cards have like these auras and these other things, it's going to look very bad for Guardian. So a lot of people are going to go, wow, I really don't want to play Guardian. I have to play these auras, these cards that aren't super good value. They don't block 3. I have to take a turn off to do them. They don't look good on their face.
Yeah, that all sounds bad.
Sure. But I have the pleasure of playing with James Silver. Don't know if you've met him, but he's one of the members. He's one of the members of the Runaways, and he consistently just kind of fatigues everybody on like every deck. And he's like, yeah, I played Guardian and it didn't matter because I have all these sync belows that, do this thing and get me extra value, or I get to have evasion on my cards because I just drafted all the wager cards.
Are the auras any good? Is Big Bop
the red
good?
The red ones can be good. However, you don't want like an excessive amount of them. Like if you're just like, I'm just drafting mono aura Guardian, you better have an aura on turn 1 and just say no blocks the rest of the game.
True. Mono aura Guardian sounds awful. Also, Guardians traditionally known for, 2 things, being bulky and having a wonderful weapon, have terrible weapons in this set. Not awful. Like Miller's Grindstone's fine, but that's a rare. You have to draft it. High Riser is bad, right? Is it bad?
Is it worse than the other weapons that do less damage? Like, like you have Centauri Sabers and they're fine. They're sometimes 3, sometimes not. Hot Streak is always 2 unless you pump it. Ball Breaker is the same damage with a conditional pump, just like the other hammer, right?
Fair enough. That's true.
And then you have the Mini Meat Axe, which is bad value because you're spending a full extra card to get the extra benefit there. So is the hammer really that bad? It
costs 1 more than the Brute ones, and it costs 2 more than the Warrior ones, which sometimes the Warrior ones just are free. You accidentally, you looked the wrong, you like shuffled your hand weird and accidentally got a Vigor token, and so now your first weapon swing is free. That can just be much better. Plus,
sure, but you're playing a different game plan, right? Like Guardian's not trying to go, hey, look at my free hammer. Like, look, I paid nothing for this.
True, but like High Riser also says, if you've drawn a card this turn, gets +1. If you're drawing cards, you are taking cards out of your deck, and if your game plan is to slow the game down, what is that not right? Kevin making faces.
Drawing cards doesn't mean they leave your deck.
Correct.
Playing and blocking with cards that means they leave your deck.
Yep.
True, actually.
Because you can just pitch the card you drew to swing your hammer now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
If you're Victor and you hit with a performance bonus and you draw that card and you just get to swing hammer for 4, that seems like a pretty good turn.
Tim should have been here to do this argument for me.
So you can also look at it in the scenario too of like if you play Test of Strength.
Yeah.
With Victor, you block, right? Block for 4, make a gold, draw a card. You got the free value off of that, and then now you can go my extra card, pop the gold, draw a card, turn on the hammer, and then swing back.
That's pretty good.
So, like, depending on how much you're blocking on that turn cycle, that value goes up or down.
Also, Golden Glare, the like Victor specialization headpiece, actually pretty nuts. Like when I saw it at first, I was like, yellows, and then I played it and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm getting rid of the garbage in my hand that says yellow at the top of it to draw a card. It was pretty cool.
Does Betsy have the best hat?
By far,
CC,
without a doubt.
definitely.
No, that's Arcanite Skullcap, but like better on not a legendary. That's like that's flat better.
It's so good. Okay, so how many Guardians can you have in a draft?
So right now is if everyone drafts perfectly and doesn't mess it up, like a lot of people tend to do in FAB.
Yes.
And the pool isn't wonky.
Correct. It should be 3-3-2, 3 brutes, 3 warriors, 2 guardians. Right. And so that requires everybody sending a signal on their first couple picks and not just being like, hey, I took this rare and sent no signal at all. And now everyone's confused. And then around pick 9, you'll see your pack come back and you can determine how many people are in there. But if everybody does it right, it should be 3-3-2, easy day. And you should almost never have 2 of the same class next to each other.
Yeah,
I know I've seen a lot of drafts so far that have been like 2 brutes, 2 guardians, 2 warriors sitting right next to each other, passing to each other and just like leeching all the cards. And it's just indicative of kind of what happened in Outsiders too, of people don't know how to read the signals and people are just going to go, I heard Guardian's bad, so I'm not going to play it. And then you're going to fall into those scenarios like a single Guardian in the pod with just a crazy insane deck.
Was it the Queensland event that didn't have any Guardians?
Queenstown Day 2 draft had 1 Guardian between the top 2 pods.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I do want to push back a little bit on a point you made there about no 2 heroes of the same class should be sitting next to each other. That was something that happened very frequently in Outsiders, and it wasn't a problem necessarily. Because if you had Azalea and Riptide sitting next to each other, they're not necessarily pulling from the same pool of Ranger cards. Or like a Benji and a Katsu could be sitting next to each other, and it wouldn't be a problem for either of them. I've had both those situations happen, and our decks were both solid, but we were also the only 2 of our class in that pod. There were only 2 ninjas in that pod, or 2 rangers. Is that not something that can happen in this set?
So it can and will happen in this set, unfortunately, and it's due to something that I like to call the reset, because eventually, right, if you pick a card and send a signal, person interprets the signal and says, okay, I'm not going to be brute because you're sending me the signal brute's closed. I'm going to be guardian. Next person goes, okay, the signal is brute and guardian are off. I'm playing warrior. Well, that person 4th down the line doesn't have information from any of those because they've all taken 1 of each of the classes. So then they're going to go, okay, I have a free pick here. What is my thing? So sometimes they're going to pick the one that was picked last, but
sure.
That can only happen so many times in a pot of 8. Like you're only going to get what I like to like 2 resets essentially in 8. And so it shouldn't happen all that often, but again, if people are ignoring signals, it's going to happen a lot. There was a story this weekend about a store in my area that had 4 warriors sitting next to each other, and they were just drafting warrior. No moral qualms about it. Just kept going.
Oh my gosh. I like to play. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
So are there not 2 sort of separate pools where Victor is trying to pull from one pool and Betsy's trying to pull from another, where you can have like, it's like a third of the Guardian cards can go to either a third prefer Betsy, a third prefer Victor?
There is some specificity to what heroes want which cards, but the thing that's kind of unique about this set is that with the addition of the hybrid cards in all 3, I'll call them wedges for lack of a better term.
That's a good.
Now you have heroes like Olympia that are like leeching off some of the Guardian cards, right? Because you have that wedge, and Olympia wants a lot of the same cards that the Guardian heroes want.
Yeah.
So now you're running into this just kind of like awkwardness of if there's 2 Guardians in Olympia, well, now that Olympia is taking cards away from those 2 Guardians.
Yeah, you end up fighting other heroes from other classes for your
Correct.
stuff.
That's kind of cool, actually.
Because there were way less hybrid cards in Outsiders. There was way more class and generic.
And there was a whole wedge
cards.
missing.
Yes, also that.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is I feel like the class, and maybe this is just my opinion from thinking about it, like I haven't seen it, I feel like the class that probably has the biggest difference in card pool has to probably be Rhinar KO. Is that right? Because Rhinar has, you know, he wants to do a value until he can combo in the game, and then KO wants to just value? Turn over turn value, but he needs, like, some cards are better than that than others.
Like, because, like, KO wants to discard every turn.
Yes.
And Rhinar only wants to discard when it matters.
Yes.
Type deal.
Yeah. Like, Rhinar could do a game plan of just, like, I have 2 big turns, almost like a Guardian might have sometimes, where they're just like, I'm going to have a turn where I do 15 damage, and then I'm going to have another one, and that ends the game. Or I do a value game plan until they're down to 7, and then I just kill them. Or something like that. And
Yeah,
I
think there's...
Their game plans are very different, so I feel like the cards that they're drafting are also going to be very different.
I think that there is definitely... like, KO will support more drafters on average just because his hero power makes everything easier, right? Like, my 5s or 6s now... I'm happy taking yellows. I'm happy taking yellow rally the rear guard because it's still a 6 and it's still going to block for 5, you know, whereas Rhinar is like, wow, I really need to be a little more methodical with my card choices. Otherwise my deck's just not going to do anything. And you're kind of looking, like you said, to combo and chain those like pseudo Blood Rush Bellow turns. Like one of the good ways that a local here was like trade in, and Rhinar is pretty good in limited because you just go trade in, discard the card, draw the card, go again, claw, and then if you have resources left over, you send the thing. So you're looking at so you're just looking at like a mini Blood Rush. You know, each claw comes in for 3, trading comes in for 3 at red, and then maybe you're lucky and you're getting like a 2-card 7 off on the end somewhere.
Is Pack Hunt in this set? Pack Hunt's in this set, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be an insane ender. Because you just like, if they even have a card left in their hand, they don't. Here's 6 damage. Yeah, Rhinar's cool. I hope to see more drafts that he's actually in. Because I know some tables are just not drafting Rhinar. I know some tables don't draft Victor. Tim's suggesting no tables draft Guardian. I hope he watches it. He doesn't. Right. He doesn't watch this, so I'm just putting as many words into his mouth as I can.
That's friendship right there.
Yeah. Oh man.
I think Guardian has merits.
Yeah, I also think as this set, like we've officially had this set out for what, coming on 2 weeks.
Yeah.
As we get closer to Pro Tour LA, I think you'll see more Victors pop up, and I think you'll see more Rhinars pop up in drafts.
As people like figure out, okay, these are the signals that say I can start picking this hero now, or these are the cards that aren't being picked up by other people, but they work really well in these classes.
Yeah, it's more like what do those good decks need to look like, and what cards do I need to be putting in them to make it do a thing that no other hero can do.
So crazy. I like this. I like this set a lot.
Yeah, I agree with that. It almost, like Victor and Rhinar almost kind of feel akin to what Katsu felt like in Outsiders, where like if you got the good Katsu pool, you were just going undefeated in your pod and it didn't matter because you just had the ability to do something that no other hero could do. And I think Victor, honestly, is kind of my sleeper for as the format grows. People are going to realize how good his hero power actually is and how to draft him properly.
Is insane. His helmet is so good.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You're gonna see Victor decks with like 3 performance bonuses in them, I think.
Yeah, and then just like there's going to be a non-zero number of victors that open Golden Sun, right? And like, oh look, I made my gold now, and I'm just gonna kill you. It's kind of weird because everybody thinks, oh well, if you're playing Victor, you're playing fatigue, and it's like you don't have to play it that way. Like you can just play like a good value game of draft.
He's the actual mid-range guardian, is what he is.
Yeah, and he, in theory, he requires less cards like per hand to function because Betsy always requires that extra 2 resources. So you're always having to give an extra card to get +1 in overpower, which if we want to look at it from like a value standpoint, overpower is not necessarily as good as dominate, because dominate's like a like anytime you slap dominate on something, you're automatically kind of 3 for 1ing whatever that card is.
Yeah. I think overpower is still probably good enough though in this set, at the very least in limited, where as long as you're then getting the wagers, like you have to be getting the wagers and you have to look at those 2 resources as like 2 points of value.
Yes, it's still quite strong. It is very strong. Yeah. It's just you lose a lot of equity into what I kind of consider like the surface level best deck if it's not KO, which is Kasai, which you're going to be running a lot of those attack reactions and things that negate your overpower. So if you're in Guardian, you need to kind of have a plan into those decks and not just be like, well, my overpower doesn't matter, I can't win.
I like all these like expressions or names you have for things. Like occasionally you're just like, or as you know, as I like to call it, would you call it the like refresh and like the surface level best hero, and I love all these names you've given stuff. It's actually really nice.
Well,
go ahead.
I'm nobody. Like I'm right. So like I haven't won Worlds. I haven't won a calling. I don't have
nobody.
A podcast listen to like millions of people or anything. Like I am just random player 7 from New England.
You're nobody that if I say your name on Twitter and don't tag you, people know who I'm talking about. You're nobody who's somebody. And
sure, but I use those little keywords to just kind of like help remind myself of like these things and like these concepts, and like that the reset thing that I was talking about is kind of important for like figuring out how many of that class are at the pod, and that's the only way I can iterate that to make sense to anybody that isn't in my brain.
No, it works. I like it. The next part about draft that I wanted to bring up real quickly is just the sheer amount of reds that are in this set. There's so many more reds than other colors. So specifically, in the dual class cards, there's a cycle of instances that are all red. The prevent 2 damage. There's 2 cycles of block cards, right? Like the test of cards and the actual cards that just say block, like hardy block. In Guardians specifically, they have an entire line dedicated to
the tower.
Yeah, the tower cards. Lay down the law, smack reality, colossal bearing. That's all like reds. They're all reds. They don't come in other colors. I think there's more lines like that too, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. But there's just actually more reds in this set than outside of Majestics. There's more reds in this set than there are other cards.
I have a question, and this isn't a call out. I will start there. How much have you actually drafted this set, if at all?
I've drafted it once. And
all right.
I prioritized. I guess the whole crux of what I'm trying to say is at some points I was like, I could get this really sick red, but I don't know how many blues I'm going to start seeing. Like, am I just going to stop seeing blues? So, do you need to prioritize blues in this draft set more so than normal? Or resource cards? Maybe not blues. Maybe sometimes yellows, depending on the class. But no, I have not drafted it much. I've drafted it once, talked about it a lot, and I've done a couple of sealed.
So, I don't know. Collectively, I think myself and
fill us in as the expert on this set.
Oh, not expert. Random player 7. Remember, and take my word, grain of salt for everything.
Yeah.
But I've opened a lot of packs of this set so far. Obviously, not as much as the people who do the mass box openings and stuff. I've seen a lot of packs with 1 red in them. Just 1 red overall in the rare slot. Sorry, here you go. Figure it out.
Are reds underprinted?
I don't necessarily know if they're underprinted, but I think this might have something to do with the shenanigans that we saw in the Outsiders print runs, where you could definitely tell, depending on where you got your box from, that they were not the same. And I think this might be done intentionally by LSS. Granted, I can't speak to that, but it seems like it's intentional, because it's not like, oh, I got this box from this distributor this time, I'm going to have blues and yellows. It's kind of like packs randomly throughout the box will just be like noticeably cut from reds.
That's weird, because it'd have to be underprinted and for that to happen, right? Like technically,
unless you had packs that were more red heavy. But I think Tim actually literally sent me a pack 1 pick 1 where it was blue rally the rear guard was our pack 1 pick 1 because of how bad that pack was.
I might have been with him during that.
You might have been there, but it was like,
okay, yeah, then it was like
Embrace Adversity, a blue like agile wind up.
It was me,
or Mighty
and
wind up.
Will all opened our bonus packs.
Yeah,
and like I think I had one and Tim had one of our 3 packs where it was like, or however
just
many packs,
all blue and yellow.
And it was just like all blue and yellow, and then 1 or 2 reds. I forgot about that. I just chalked that up to randomness. Like
I think that's done random. Intentionally.
Oh my gosh!
I do think that LSS has figured out a way to kind of do that intentionally as best they can, and as you're opening these packs and you're like, man, even my rares are yellow. Like I'm looking at like a yellow beast mode as my rare. You know, that's just like, what do I take from this pack? Like, what is my priority? Am I looking for a blue 3 block now? Am I looking for, like one of the like lead with speed yellows or something? Like how do I evaluate this pack now? And I think they did it on purpose. 1, to challenge drafters to solve the puzzle, and and 2, add that little bit of variance into drafting where it's like, okay, you've been drafting all your reds, now here's just this like influx of blues. What do you take? How do you do it? And a lot of times I've found that I just kind of have to reserve to playing some bad blues in my deck, because that's what's there, and I just have a bunch of blues that they're only there for resource cards, and we're moving on with life and accepting our fate.
So I will say, I went back and I looked at these, and all of these like red cycles are in rare slots. None of these are commons. So all the commons are like have all 3 colors set. It's only the rares that can only come in red. I think that was like the same in Bright Lights too, right? Where like they had cycles of reds that were only, or cycle of rares.
And even then, there's the alcohols, which are blues at common.
That's true. And the alcohols are busted, and I had a deck with like 4 of them in it, and it was insane, and it felt unfair, and the alcohols are cool. Holy frick.
Yeah, I could be wrong on this, but I think Test of Strength is the only common at red only. I think.
Is that a common? I didn't know it was a common.
Test of Strength is, the gold is a common.
That might be it. That might be the only rare, or the only red common. I'm going to circle back around and ask the question, when do you pick your hero? You're drafting in a pod that, let's say it's average. Let's say it's RTN, and you got people coming in from out of state or out of county, and you probably have some locals. It's a good pod. Like, this isn't like something you're going to see at World's Top 8, but like, it's a good solid pod. When are you picking your hero?
Well, if out of towners are coming and it's an RTN and it's not like a top level competitive event, I'm forcing my hero from the start, from the get go, because I trust none of you. I trust no one to do this correctly. So I am just getting my goodies where I can and doing it right now. And there's two schools of thought, right? One is just play KO because it's the easiest deck to build and supports the most drafters. And the other is, I know everyone doesn't want to draft Guardian, so I'm just hard locking Guardian at pack one, pick one, and say, figure it out.
Okay, all right. Let's say you're playing at day 2 Battle Hardened. That's a thing that exists. So you're playing at a tier 3 event and you're drafting. These people have all, not necessarily an invite event, but these people have all shown up. Like maybe it's a calling or something.
Calling day 2 is draft.
Calling day 2 is draft. Let's say it's calling day 2. When are you picking your hero?
Probably I would say the middle end of pack one. Like once I've seen of this middle end, right? So remember when I was talking about when you see earlier, when you see the pack come around again, and it has finally wheeled, and like, so you take your pick one, and then it goes through the entire table, and then on your like 9th pick, you've seen essentially all the cards.
You've seen all the packs.
So at that point, you can reasonably assess based on what cards came back to you, and depending on how many packs you keep track of when you do this, because you only really have to remember 8 to 9 cards for the first couple packs because you're staring at the ones that are in front of you now. You can go, okay, well, the card I wanted to wheel didn't wheel, so there's at least one of this. Okay, I saw all the warrior cards got scooped up before they got back to me, so there's, X number of warriors down there somewhere, and kind of go from there. It's harder in these hybrid sets to do this for sure, which is why so many people mess it up. But once that wheel comes around, you figure it out and you go, okay, before the end of pack 1, am I in the correct seat? Because if you pivot like halfway through pack 2, you might be playing crack baubles and you might be SOL.
And I've seen it. Kevin, is that too early or too late? Like, when do you do it? When are you settling on a hero?
I would probably be closer to pick 5 through 7. And it's probably like I'm on a class with a favored hero. So like I would be leaning Kasai, but if I open something in pack 2 or 3 that can push me into Olympia, I will. But like there's pseudo defaults in each class where like Betsy is the default, KO is the default, Kasai is the default, and you need something to push you into the other hero is kind of the way I'm looking at it at the moment. And that might be wrong, but like you kind of need something specific to push you into Olympia, which is the hat, the specialization. You have an overabundance of the wager attacks or something like that, and you don't have a ton of draw swords, or like you kind of have defaults, it feels like, and I would probably be on one of them by pick 7, probably.
Yeah, I would say 7 is like the middle, and then once we get to where I was talking about, which is like 9 is towards the end of the pack, right? Like you only have so many more before you just lose all selection. And I do agree, you need to have a very good reason to play Olympia over a hero like Kasai, who just objectively has a better hero power. You can just play the game normally, activate the hero power, do the thing. We did it. The other thing that people don't, or at least I haven't seen pay attention to yet, is like people will pass specializations and not understand what that means. So when you pass a specialization, you are essentially giving the bat signal to the person you pass it to, hey, this hero is open, right?
I mean, are the specializations just the headpieces? Is that all I can think of, right? And the like Majestics?
Yes.
Right? Yes. There's not like there's not like some other rare specialization.
No, just the Majestics and the hats.
Okay. Yeah, if you pass one of those, You better have a reason. You better have a solid reason. Most of those specializations are insano. Like,
yes, but then you come into this mind game, right? It's like, oh, I don't want to be Rhinar. I'm not, I don't want to be pigeonholed into this, and I don't want this to be my first pick because I think there's a better card in the pack. So now you're passing the Rhinar hat and essentially creating a Rhinar sometimes directly on the other side of you. So you need to be aware of that scenario and go, okay, I know this person is most likely Rhinar. Most people are going to see the special and go, oh, look, Candy, insane. And then go from there. And that's why I'm saying, like, you can create those things, and then you need to understand what signals you're sending to the rest of the table so that when you go to make your decision of what hero you're playing in pack 1, that you don't accidentally shoot yourself in the foot and go, oh, well, I sent this Rhinar helmet and now I've messed up and I'm in Rhinar passing to Rhinar. What happens here?
Yes,
and I've seen it happen.
Yeah, because there's a couple of the specs that are not quite as good as the others. So like
the Rhinar hat.
The Rhinar hat, the KO Majestic.
Yep, that's a big one.
And then
I don't even know that.
I was just looking. Raisin Army almost is like still a step below some of the others. I feel like just in terms of like consistency.
Yes, and once you send those cards, you're again screaming from the mountaintops that you are not this hero because you didn't take their special. Yeah.
That's crazy.
But then, like, does the person next to you even take it? Like, how far down do some of these get passed? Can also end up interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I wish there was more draft in my local area, and I wish I had more money to go to the drafts, because I can go to like one event a week, and it feels like I don't have a lot of money to spend on TCGs, so I can't spend $15 every week on a draft. But I would spend $100 if I had the money on a draft every week. I love draft. To circle back around to signals at the armory level, basically, my signal technique is I rare draft for the first 3 picks, and then on pick 4, I just choose a hero and force it then. So it's
such a lie.
No. You're the problem. You're the reason we have 4 warriors in a row.
All I'm gonna say is my first draft in okay, so our first draft, it was actually all really weird. So the first draft I did of the set, it was only 6 people, but we had 2 warriors on the opposite side of the table, 2 brutes on the opposite side of the table, a guardian and a warrior on opposite side of the table, but the warrior went into warrior pack 3, and they were picking guardian up until then, and then had like 6 cracked baubles. I don't know. They were just doing their own thing. And then also I ended up winning the draft. So all I'm going to say is it totally worked in the 1 out of 1 scenario that I'm quoting.
Man, results based, observations crazy.
Yeah, only at armory level does results based analysis work. It is why I'm going to be bringing Phi to nationals. I'm just kidding. Actually, so I was thinking about, do you have time? Do you want to stick around for this next topic?
I'll stick around. I got nothing else to do.
Heck yeah. Because I don't think we have another person lined up, but I did want to talk about, and you're not prepped for this, so this is even more exciting.
Yeah, I didn't get to take notes for this one.
Yeah, you didn't take notes for this one. So this happened. Let's see if there's a date here. On the 4th, February 4th, Joshua Scott makes an announcement on the heavy hitters rules and policy changes. For the comprehensive rules, tournament rules and policies, procedure, penalty guide, all that stuff, and how it's changed for heavy hitters. He does this with each set. And so there's like 4 main points that he specifically, puts in quotes for people to look at and to understand, like some real like bullet points for some changes. And some of them I found very interesting. So the first one was, this one's not a super big deal. It was they added an explicit 3-minute time extension for deck checks to account for shuffling. In parentheses, not to exceed round time. That's a thing.
Yes, and funny enough, I actually have something that kind of pertains to this.
Tell me about it.
So I was in Vegas for the team event, right? The uprising, release, team calling, all that stuff. And I think it was round 3 or 4, our middle seat gets deck checked.
Yeah. And
for whatever reason, the judge made an incorrect decision and said, no, here's your deck back. We've verified the deck's correct. You may begin your game. And my middle seat goes to shuffle, and they say, stop. If you shuffle, you will get a game loss. Da, 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 da.
What?
It's weird thing. Judge was not correct. But some of these deck checks take a little while, especially when you have like foreign language cards and things like that, and they have to sort everything, and they have to go, okay, you've got your 3 copies of this, 3 copies of that, da 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 da. And especially if they're training somebody, it takes a little while. So I understand why that rule comes into place. And this deck check did take an awfully long time because the judge in question was also training somebody. And the trainee was the one doing the deck check and had to like learn the process and do all the things. And by the time it got back, there was like, I don't know, less than a minute, I think, left in the pregame procedures. And then when he was told he couldn't shuffle, went back and forth for a bit. It ran into the game time. And then he just drew all 3 copies of Oak and Old into his Spinal.
Oh my gosh.
Into the next 2 copies of Spinal into 2 more reds, and he's against his worst matchup at the time, which was Old Kasai, and it's just like, okay, I died like sick. We didn't get to play this game.
Holy frick.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I think that change is very good, and then it also kind of allows time for appeals should situations come back.
That makes more sense, because when we were talking about this initially before the show, we were like, I guess this kind of makes sense. And so I guess that's what the parentheses will not exceed round time means. It's if this deck check starts cutting into the round time. If you add on the 3 minutes, it won't add extra minutes to the round time, if that makes sense. Like if it only takes 2 minutes of the round time, 2 minutes
Correct.
extra of the round time, then it'll only add 2 minutes to the game time. I guess that makes sense. That's really interesting. I'm glad you're here for that. All right.
I'm glad I finally got to tell that story too.
That is a good story. So I do want to also preference, and I like saying this a lot because I think it's very important, is that in general, the whole system falls apart if we don't trust judges. In general, if you need anything, please call a judge. You should always typically trust whatever the judge says on the floor, even if they're like knowably wrong. You should also feel free to like escalate it, like, or what's the term I'm looking for? Appeal it to another judge. Yeah. Like the whole entire professional scene falls apart if you don't trust your judges. And so you should in general expect that the judge is making the correct call. You might know more than the judge in that moment, but like in general, if you can't trust judges, then you won't call judges, and like people won't call judges, and it just becomes a whole problem. But even still, that was a crazy story.
Yeah. To add though, this still was a time where the competitive scene in America, like the callings and everything, we were still kind of training judge staff, getting everybody updated on the rules. 2.0 hadn't fully rolled out.
Oh, when did you say this happened again?
This was the Uprising release.
Oh, okay.
So
like
it was almost 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
Correct. So
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
I'm
it was
old.
a while ago. Oof. Oh.
All right, let me get to this next bullet point. Players must ask permission to use alters for a tournament in advance. Alter misprint token policy is updated to be more clear. They had a whole policy update on alters where part of it included like that the only things that needed to be on the card, I'm paraphrasing, are the numbers, the name, the pitch and pitch strip, and there was a couple of things about like to what extent you can alter it, like you can't make it look like another card, and things like that. But you have to ask permission to use alters for a tournament in advance, which I think is probably a good thing. This should be a good thing. If it turns out that there's a ton of people with alters, it'd be weird if you have like a whole like you have a big event and everyone's bringing alters, and then I don't expect that to ever happen. But what if they had to like take a couple of people had to spend 30 minutes to an hour before the tournament started going through alters for everybody? That'd be crazy.
I mean, they do that anyways for proxies for Fableds. I mean, there's always lines at the beginning of Nats and Pro Tours for that stuff.
That's crazy.
So like they are just adding to that line, but the alters should be easier. You should have the original unaltered. You should have original unaltered versions with them,
so that you can
just swap them, and that's a very quick. You show them the alter, they yes or no it, and then if they know it, you swap it, and that's it.
Do you have anything you wanted to say to that?
I think it's a good change.
Yeah.
So a lot of these big events, you'll have a wide variety of people from like the ultra competitive to like, hey, this is my first tournament in any TCG ever. And sometimes people playing with the alters are like, I don't know what that card is. Like the first time I had ever seen one of the promo Fate for scenes that are in a language that I don't speak, I was like, I don't know what this card is, right? And that's not even an alter, that's just a promo. So I was like, Judge, can you tell me what this card is? Because I don't know. And they're like, oh, that's the promo version Fate for Scene. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what that does. Let's move on.
Yeah.
But it can only get worse if you have people, like if you look at some of the alters that were referenced in the article, like
poor Bear Hands.
Yeah, Bear Fangs.
Bear Fangs. Poor
I'm a
Bear
new player.
Fangs. Oh, no.
I don't know what that card is across the table from me, and I have to look at it and read it, and I go, "Is this even a real card? Like, what is this? Like, I don't know."
This man
I'm a new
printed
player.
it out, sleeved it. All right, okay. So the next point, which we thought we were like, this was the. No, I'm going to skip this. I'm going to go to the fourth point and then back to the third. So the fourth point was added PTI and non-USA national championship as a tournament type in competitive REL. Seems nice. Clarified the U.S. national champ remains at the professional REL. I don't know if that also includes day one. But then also moved Battle Hardened from tier 2 to tier 3. I'm pretty sure this is only just like from like a, defining what it is kind of a thing. And it kind of makes sense when you look at it because
it's a formality.
Yeah, it's kind of a formality, but it is interesting to say that Battle Harden's a tier 3 event. So adds a little prestige to it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, those events are hard. Like,
yeah,
I've played in a handful of them now, and you like, oh, it's a smaller tournament, and then you just have the people that go to every Battle Hardened, right? Like you have your top contenders like Brody Spurlock and all those people that just like, oh, there's a Battle Hardened in Russia, that's where I'm going this weekend, and just there's there.
I have heard people on Twitter or like locals say stuff like, I mean, it's just a Battle Hardened, but like that is very disingenuous because Battle Hardens are insane and it typically pretty cutthroat. I mean, it's a 1-day event. Like it's a slog is what it looks like.
They're usually pretty disingenuous to like the number of losses you can take throughout the tournament.
Yeah, you can get like one.
So yeah, so arguably it is harder to top 8 with those few rounds, right? With a wide variety of talent there and be consistent at it. Like there are very good players across the world, across the country that just have never top 8'd a Battle Hardened, but they're very good players.
So moves up to tier 3, and I think that makes sense. The last point that I thought was crazy was players may now use electronic devices at professional REL events, provided their opponent can see and read all the information on the screen when it's in use. Paper life totals should always be preferred over electric life totals, but you can go to Worlds and use your phone as a life counter until you're on camera. You can just do that. You can just do that.
That's a no for me, dog.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. That one feels kind of tough. It's like
totally what it says though, and what it's implying.
Sure, but you know, if your opponent's like they're doing something, they swipe down real quick and you don't catch it, or like you see them swipe down, like how do you go, what was that, you know, and do you call a judge? And then it's just like he said, she said, and you're just wasting time, and it just creates a whole debacle. If I don't like it,
yeah. If I wanted to be evil to like prove a point, it would not take like genuinely, because I know a guy. It wouldn't take an afternoon to make a life total app that I could directly message from my phone. Like I can message your phone or send a prompt to your phone running this life total app that we created and have it do a thing like make the life total go down on accident, or maybe like the screen starts dimming and you're like, oh, the screen's dimming, but they're like giving a signal by having the screen dim automatically or something like that. Or
he has the pummel.
Yeah. If the screen dims, he has the pummel, right? Like if I wanted to be evil, you could literally like prove a point with how having your phone at Worlds could be wildly problematic. Like, I mean, I use my phone at armories. I use my phone at skirmishes.
Sure.
But like at day 2 of a calling or Worlds or a Pro Tour.
At an RTN.
With gold foils on the line. It can be crazy. I'm not into that.
So go ahead, sorry.
I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to codify it in the rules that you can use like the boogie boards, the electronic life pads that just have the reset button. That's all they do.
Then they need to say that.
I think they can specify that with reasonable sort of leeway for judges to say this device does qualify, this device doesn't.
Make that line longer at the beginning of the day. You have to show them your phone. Can I use this? Can I use this in the event, please?
Anything with internet connection should not be used.
No.
I think instead of doing the line at the beginning of the day, they'd probably just be more akin to what judges would do during like GPs for Magic, when they would do.
Tell me.
They would walk around the hall and they would just look at people's sleeves, and they were just trained to know, oh, that brand of sleeve is traditionally opaque. I'm going to stop the players. I'm going to examine, make sure they don't have any marked cards, and move on. And if they have marked cards, I'll issue penalties there. So I don't think they need to have everybody stand in line and go, hey, is my boogie board good? You know, does this qualify as a reliable thing? Can I use this for the tournament? They can probably just walk around and go, okay, you know, this person's using their phone. Hey, do you have a boogie board? If you don't have one, move to paper, that kind of thing. And just get rid of anything with an internet connection. I agree. It should just be the boogie boards, if anything. And even that's still kind of iffy. I'm very old school in my professional REL must be played on pen and paper. You must steal the hotel notepad and the pen they give you.
I'm even older than that. You have to use only dice. You have to use a D20 with me, or I'm calling a judge.
Specifically a spin down.
Yeah, specifically a spin down. I don't want no random dice. It's got to be like a spin down specifically.
Or what was those things they printed in the old commander decks? Do they still do those?
Oh, the wheels. Oh
yeah.
No, they're the new ones too.
Jeez,
they suck. Holy frick! Paper or cardboard life wheels.
Yeah,
not into that.
Yeah, give everybody one of those. It's 40 life. It works.
Oh my gosh. I think that's it. I think we've covered everything.
I think so. I do want to say, if they were to say no boogie boards, I would be cool with that, because there will be a point where somebody hides a connection thing inside a boogie board, and then they could literally just print information onto the boogie board from their friend.
I've genuinely thought about, how I made the more, I've been calling it a proper YouTube video, where I made the proper YouTube video about the tall deck box or whatever. I was thinking about making a proper YouTube video where, like, I work with a buddy of mine and we make an app that allows me to cheat with a life total just to prove a point. I mean, obviously we wouldn't use it, but maybe I like take it to an armory and see if I can get it to work or something like that, or an on demand or something like it doesn't matter. And then my
extra draft after an armory.
Yeah, an extra like maybe not even an actual event or something like that.
You could literally do that for a table pit video.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but it's like
just as your UPF game.
I don't want to do that. Like, that feels so awful to have to do, right? Like, that's like me like proving a point or something about the rules, which I've done before and was a really awkward conversation. And it's just I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to like press every question that they have in the rules. And even though I have an opinion about this one, it's like I can see the point.
Other people that we know have done that. Mara's done that. You want to know the rules she did it for?
Which one did she do it for? Do I know this?
Popping on other chain links.
Oh my god.
Oh, I do remember that, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, she knew about that for at least 6 months before they changed it.
Oh my gosh.
We kept it very hush hush because
I didn't know that. Yeah, that's actually huge.
Yeah, because you could go swing dragon, put a 5 in front of it, send attack, and like end with a snatch, and you can blow up the snatch at the end and the dragon if you pump that attack still.
Oh my gosh.
And they changed it so Phantasm is only on the active chain link. But yes, people have done that.
It reminds me of when Joshua Scott talked about him becoming the rules and policy manager. He was like, I know how to play an E-Pot and activate it at the same time or something like that. And so the idea is you would gain 2 resources and then play the E-Pot. Because like you could activate the E-Pot while it was on the stack.
Sure.
Because there wasn't a stack. I don't think there was a stack back then. It was like the way cards were resolving.
Something like that.
And it was like you could activate the E-Pot before it hit the field. Then it would hit the field.
To playing the E-Pot.
Yeah, and then when it hit the field, you could activate it again. Because it's a different card at that point or something like that. Like, it's like the rules were like... And then they were like, hey, do you want a job? And so now he's in charge of all this crap.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, stories like that is crazy. I don't know. I think I'm going to sit on the idea about this electronic thing for a bit before I make a video on it. What were you going to say?
What was that illusionist card that caused all sorts of problems for the rules for a little while? It was like, what if my illusion... No. Oh, here's a hot take for you. You want this one? You can sit on this one for next time.
Let me write it down.
Spectre's good for the game. Don't at
me. Hey, what are you doing next week this time?
Nothing.
Show up and say that same thing.
Absolutely. But the illusionist card that became a copy of a previous illusionist attack on the chain. What was that card?
Fractal replication.
Yes.
It's still a problem.
Yeah.
Actually, I beat somebody.
That's really a problem?
With E-Strike? That's my guess, is with E-Strike is where it's a really big problem.
No, I meant Shapeshifter.
Oh, frick. Oh. That's funny. That's really funny.
Yikes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. You could do dumb stuff with that.
Gosh.
So
Shapeshifter's
they have to set up the rule where any card that has a class is your hero's class. And then any class is like every class or something is Shapeshifter. So then it references any Shapeshifter card, which means it references any card.
That's not how Shapeshifter works, though, right? Like traditional?
That's how some Shapeshifter events
I don't like that. Yeah, go ahead.
it makes for some really fun stuff, like boost chain.
No, okay, so actually, so a point I was going to bring up, not this time, but next time maybe, was that maybe the thing that UPF needs to make it even crazier and more fun is that UPF is just by default shapeshifter, like constructed shapeshifter, and then you do, and then I was specifically thinking chain. Or somebody like a shadow mechanologist set where like you can either boost into a mechanologist card or you boost into a shadow card so you have another card next to it.
And then you can creepers it.
Yeah, and then you can creepers it. Oh, that'd be so cool. Shapeshifter constructed UPF sounds really fun. And I think that could be a direction. I think I made a tweet about it that could be a direction UPF's going in. But I think we're gonna wrap it up here. It's after 9 already. So we'll start with you, Mr. The Orc Knight. Thank you for calling in. Is there anything you want to shout out, like our Patreon?
Yeah, that your Patreon. Subscribe and do the stuff.
Thank you.
Pay them money. Do the thing. Thank you guys for having me. I had fun. It was a nice way to spend my Thursday evening.
Heck yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Kevin, do you have any shout outs?
Nope.
Well, I think that wraps it up. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye.